14, I think, 13? 14. Kevin Lionel, who has a question that says, Frank Turek said, paraphrasing, that in heaven we will have free will, but we won't sin because we won't have sin nature. If that's the case, why didn't God just make us like that on earth? Kevin, two things. I think I do agree with Frank on this. Okay. We have free will, but we won't sin because we don't have sin nature. Two, actually three things. I'll try to answer the question. Before I do, here's the second thing. I just want Christians to know this. What if we have no good answer here? We'll have free will and we won't sin. Why didn't God just make us that way right now? And the answer, we just throw our hands up and go, I have no idea. Like, this shouldn't bother you, Christian. Like, sometimes the world, or even yourself, you act like you have to know everything to be confident about anything. And that is a very unwise thing, because you will never know everything. So then the result is you'd never be confident about anything ever, which we can be confident is a bad way to live your life. So what I'm going to suggest is, like, just for anybody who's like, every time you have a question about Christianity that you don't know the answer to, you're like on the edge of a cliff. Like, there's a different problem there than the question. Think about that. Why do I say this? Because I've been there. It took me a long time of answering questions to realize that I had this tendency to, like, be afraid of this. If I can't answer this, then I everything's in question. And I just slowly learned how dumb I am and how many things I don't have answers for, and I shouldn't expect myself to. I do have good answers for many very important things, and the foundational truths of Christianity are very well established. So this kind of stuff shouldn't bother you, but it's a good question still. So why didn't God make the world like this to start with? I think one of the most obvious answers is for free will. Okay, when you go to heaven, you have made a decision to accept and embrace God and reject a godless life. Now, God aids you in that choice when he removes the flesh from you, and he's granted you a new spirit and all this, but this was all part of a decision you made. And so in response to a choice you made, but if we were just all in heaven in perfect experiences with no temptations of any kind ever, then that would mean we never made that choice. So if you want to preserve the choice, you do need to give us an opportunity to get there and not just to be there. The other thing is that we actually learn a lot of good things through this time of difficulty. So philosophers, I'm not making this up. Some of you think I make stuff up. Not at the moment anyway. So philosophers will think about how to make a perfect world. And there are some philosophers who will argue, and I think that this is interesting, that there's no way to make a perfect world without first making an imperfect world, because there are certain benefits that come from an imperfect state that will then be needed in the perfect state. Now that might sound weird, but struggles produce character, and hardship produces benefits, along with things like free will. Who wants to be in that perfect world? Who wants to be with God? Because nobody wants to be in hell, but a lot of people don't really want heaven. They don't really want to be where God is Lord of all they do. Right? They don't look forward to that. They don't want to worship God for all eternity. I've met plenty of people who say that even if God was real, they would reject him. And I'll be like, well, he is real and you are, that's terribly sad. But there's something positive about you even being able to make that choice, so that when we stand before him in all eternity, it's only those who've decided that they want that. So there's benefits that come from it. One of the benefits is Christ. So, like, I don't know about you, Kevin, but the weight of God, of how much God loves me, the reason why I'm aware of it is because of the cross of Christ. And when I look at my failures and my sins and my overwhelming wickedness that I've committed in my life, and I look at him coming and taking on human form and living a good life, a perfect life, but then dying and suffering the shame of what I've done, the guilt for what I've done being placed upon him, the punishment for what I've done being experienced by him dying and then rising again. This is the thing I always come back to tell me that God does love me right now, and to encourage me to love others, whether they deserve it or not. It's the cross. Now, if God just made us all in heaven, there would be no cross. There would be no massive demonstration of the love of God for people. There's a number of things that we would miss if God did do that. I think, though, that what we are is we're still in the middle of the story, and we have to like let it play out and trust God that he's going to work all things together for good, and not try to make judgment calls on things before we get there.